a lot of the time, and I'll just be completely frank with you, I was really nervous going to these conferences, right? Because I thought to myself, I don't really know like what I'm gonna do to like network. Everyone always says, oh, go to these conferences, do all these things, you'll meet people, but like, how do you do that? So I'm pretty extroverted, but I'm also really introverted too. So it takes a lot of energy for me to like go up to somebody and be like, hey, Sarah, where do you teach? Or something like that, like it's hard for me to do that. So my plan was I'm just going to be organic. I'm just going to go and just go with the flow. It's like I told you in the previous question. Sometimes you just make a plan and something else comes in the way, you react to it. We're all instrumentalists, right? We are highly adaptable people. You have to be. You're sitting in an orchestra, maestro asks for it differently. You got to do it differently. So I just sort of went with that philosophy and got brave, and I would ask questions a lot. So if let's say, for example, I attended the Sphinx workshops a lot. I love going to Sphinx. It's a really great place. For people who aren't familiar, it's or a nonprofit based out of Detroit whose mission is to empower people through the diversity of the arts. And so I go to these conferences and sit in on workshops where they talk about everything from auditioning to, how can schools be more friendly to diverse candidates and everything in between. And I would just take notes when people were talking, even as I sit here today talking to y'all. I have this little notepad, just in case I have some questions or things that I want to ask you or things I might want to look up later. And I would write down questions and I would ask the panelists. And 9 times out of 10, if I asked a question, there's somebody else in the audience who had that same exact question. And so they come up to me afterwards and say, oh, I'm so happy you asked that. I was too shy to ask. And next thing you know, we start talking. Next thing you know, we're exchanging contact info. Or social media handles, and the rest is history. So I try to make a habit to ask questions, especially you have a really good one, a real whopper of one. Write it down, go up to the microphone and ask. The second way that I networked in these conference type settings, or even like gigs, to be honest with you, like when I've been asked to play with orchestras, like I'll give you an example. Whenever I go to play with Kansas City Symphony, I always make it a point to go out to the bars after the concert with the musicians. And I know what everyone's thinking, haha, yeah, you're going to go out and have, get drunk or whatever after concert. No, that's not what's happening. When you go and you talk to people after these events, that's when the real networking happens. Oh, so-and-so, you went to what school? Blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, you're getting a gig in like London. That happened to me. So I always try to make it a point to put myself in these situations and just sort of be really reactive and proactive at the same time, just finding ways of thinking, how can I stay in touch with this person? And then following up after with social media. I use social media like crazy. I keep track of people that way. I do internet stalking to see what's what and who's who and what's going on, and then interject myself in opportunities, And sometimes it doesn't work out, but a lot of times it does. So I think those are the two main ways. And then probably the third way of networking not associated with conferences is I never burn bridges, ever. There have been lots of times in my life where I've been discriminated against for whatever reason, being a minority, being female, being heavy set, and also being a brass player, right? It's like really unusual to see that. I still don't do that because you never know who's going to be on a committee or who's going to be there. And, I just try to be that person that's always smiling. I might go tell my dog how much I hate so-and-so, or something like that to like let it out. But I try really hard to be professional even when other people aren't. And it's not always easy, but I pick and choose my battles, and I never forget that you never know who's going to be on the other side of that screen or the other side of that desk when you're trying to interview or audition for a job. So I would say that's how I've networked. And you can call upon those relationships later too. If it hadn't been for Larry Williams, my high school horn teacher, who I stayed in touch with all these years, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. I can tell you that hands down. So